After an inexperienced man gets his first teaching job at an inner-city middle school, he realizes that the students aren't educated about the human reproductive system. So, he takes it upon himself to teach the children, incurring the wrath of a local reverend. While working his minimum wage job at a bagel shop, the miserable Ed watches a couple making out by the counter. Eventually, the man asks if they have a bathroom, and he says no since he deduces that they'll only use it to do the deed. So, the customer says he'll buy all the bagels if the employee allows them to use the bathroom. But Ed remains firm in his decision. Then, the man recognizes the worker as the student teacher who taught them geometry a few years ago, and her boyfriend calls Ed a loser. When the man continues refusing the couple's request, the male customer grabs bagels from the display case and throws them at the employee.
That's sad.
Ed arrives at his apartment and catches his roommate JT making love to Allie in his bed. Annoyed, he tells his friend that he hasn't even done the deed in his bed yet and that he just changed the sheets. So, JT apologizes and introduces the man to his new girlfriend. Moments later, Ed reads another rejection letter from a teaching job he applied for, prompting his roommate to assure him that he deserves to be a teacher. Determined to get the job
his roommate's a good guy.
The man says he needs to actively seek a position instead of waiting around. The next day, Ed barges into Mr. Washout's office and says they rejected his application without an interview. Impressed by his resolve, the man checks his resume and assigns him to an open position at an inner-city middle school. When he returns to the apartment, he finds JT and Allie preparing to engage in quirky lovemaking in the living room.
Yet again, bro.
He tells the pair about the good news and says that it's an after-school study program. Since commuting to the school might become an issue in the future, Ed thinks it's a good idea to find his own place closer to the new job. Even though the roommate seems sad that this means they won't get to see each other as much anymore, he says it's for the best that the man no longer walks in on him and his girlfriend.
Oh my god, right?
Soon, Ed meets his new landlady Sydney, who tells him to come to her bar downstairs later to mingle with the other tenants. That night, the man heads to the bar and commends the good music. He shares that he was in jazz band in high school and played the oboe, and Sydney points out that the instrument he chose isn't one that ladies find sexy. During his first day at the new job, the eager teacher introduces himself to his students as their after-school activities coordinator. To his surprise, the kids don't seem excited to be there, so they explain that he's been assigned to oversee detention. Then, Leon asks if the teacher would like to hear him freestyle rap using his name. However, the student ends up using the man's name in a lewd manner, eliciting laughter from the other children. Suddenly, Shelley comes back crying from the bathroom and says she's going to die. Confused, Ed asks what she's talking about, so she says she has cancer because she's bleeding from her nether regions.
I knew that.
He realizes that it's the student's first time having her time of the month, so he runs to the teacher's lounge to grab a pack of feminine products. However, Shelley doesn't know how to use it, and when Ed asks if he can call her parents, she says her father's at work and she doesn't have a mother. So, the teacher asks Allie, who's a nurse, to come over and help out with the situation. After school, Ed sees his student Tito waiting for his ride outside the building. Suddenly, the team's beautiful adult sister Pilar introduces herself to the smitten man. Moments later, Hector, the woman's boyfriend, arrives in his car to pick them up. At the bar, the teacher tells his friends how his students seem to have little to no knowledge about how their bodies work. Then, Allie points out that he can still teach the kids about the reproductive system even though he's chaste. So JT defends his old roommate and says he's had experience doing the deed before. However, the friend does think it's been a while since Ed's been with a woman and encourages him to sleep around before dating a lady he really likes. The next day, the teacher takes it upon himself to educate his students about the reproductive system so they don't go through life ill-informed. When Leon keeps interrupting the class to crack crude jokes, the annoyed man tells him to head to the principal's office. The pupil begs him to reconsider, afraid of what his father might do to him if he finds out he's been misbehaving at school, but Ed remains firm in his decision. Later, in the bathroom, the teacher overhears Leon's father, Reverend Hamilton, admonishing his son and washing his mouth with soap in the sink. So, Ed intervenes and explains that he runs the after-school program educating the kids about the changes in their bodies during puberty. However, Reverend Hamilton counters that these kinds of conversations belong at home between a parent and child, and not with a teacher he barely knows and trusts. That night, the man meets his blind date Trish at the bar, and Sydney listens in on the awkward small talk. Eventually, the inebriated woman takes the teacher to the storage room to make out. Suddenly, Trish starts crying and laments that men only date her because she has a reputation as a lovemaking partner.
Oh man.
Ed consoles her and assures her
Nope.
that she's a nice person and says that they don't have to do anything physical on the first date. However, the woman takes his respectful gesture and assumes that he isn't that into her because he's attracted to men.
Wow.
His date leaves, the teacher returns to the bar
Should've
and
just
Sydney
did the
tells
deed,
him
bro.
that she knew the moment Trish walked in that the man wasn't interested. He admits that he didn't like the woman that much, but that he had to lower his standards because he hadn't done the deed in a while. So, the landlady says that not getting any action doesn't make him a lesser man. She adds that
Of
he needs
course
to
women
stop
will say that,
moping
bruh.
about being broke and not having a girlfriend. The next day, the teacher discusses the many diseases one can acquire through lovemaking. He says the only way to prevent transmission is to abstain from all intimate acts. But if one chooses to engage, one needs to use prophylactics. Because the students aren't taking his
Protections.
advice seriously, Ed shows them a slideshow of images of the diseases. Eventually, the man teaches his pupils the proper way of using male prophylactics. After school, Tito asks Ed for advice because he wants to do the deed with his girlfriend Margarita. So, the man tells him that he shouldn't rush into things just because he wants to do the same things he sees on the internet. Moments later, Pilar arrives and reveals that Ed is her brother's favorite teacher. Then,
She's
she asks
cute,
him to
bruh.
have dinner at their house tonight because their mother wants to meet him.
But she has Hector,
That
bro.
evening, he meets the student's mother, Lupe, who asks him for help preparing dinner. Then, Hector arrives, and Pilar introduces the two men to each other. While setting the table, the woman shares that she works as a DJ and invites the teacher to her shows if he's available.
But she
Once
has a girlfriend,
heads to the
boyfriend
kitchen,
already, man.
The boyfriend appears and offers Ed a shot of rum. Then, Hector points out how weird it is that the teacher accepted an invite to have dinner at his student's house, subtly implying that he knows he's attracted to Pilar. Having had multiple shots of alcohol since arriving, the man splashes water on his face in the bathroom to sober up. During the meal, Hector notices the queasy look on Ed's face and challenges him to eat a fisheye. The teacher ingests the fisheye, but he immediately regrets his decision after throwing up on Lupe. Embarrassed, the man runs out of the house and heads to the bar.
Oh my god,
The
Hector's
landlady
savage, bro.
assures him that she's had her fair share of humiliating experiences, and he shouldn't let one bad night stop him from pursuing his dream woman. The next day, Ed asks JT and Allie to help him teach the students how to respectfully communicate with the opposite gender. Then, the female pupils enthusiastically urge the handsome ex-roommate to flex his muscles and
Nice.
show his abs. Soon, the teens sit opposite the two guests and ask questions about certain scenarios they might find themselves in the future. After class, the couple realizes that the teacher wasn't lying about how little the students knew about their bodies and gender
Yeah.
dynamics. Later, while Ed and Tito hang out outside the school, Pilar arrives and shares that she and Hector are taking a break because the boyfriend was being possessive.
Oh my god, that's always the case. Always the damn women want to take a break, bro. She wants to go, oh, some other shit, bro. That's what's going on right here.
So, the man invites her to the bar on Thursday night to watch an Afro-Cuban jazz band, and she accepts. The next day, the teacher gets called down to Washout's office because Reverend Hamilton complained about his class. Ed insists he's only teaching his students about general adolescent health issues, but the man says they can't do that in the district, especially since the Reverend specifically petitioned against it. He adds that his pupils need the class because half of them are already experimenting. So Washout suggests he speak to Reverend Hamilton personally and make his case. Later, Ed sees that there are more students than normal,
Wow.
so they explain that they heard about the class and wanted to join in. However, the man says he can't teach them their usual lesson today, prompting the newcomers to walk out of the room. Then, he speaks to Tito in the hallway and asks the teen if he's all right with him dating his sister, and the latter assures him it's fine. After work, Ed talks to the Reverend, who explains that human reproduction shouldn't be taught in schools because if God is taken out of the equation, the teens are going to accept it as a normal biological act and do it often. So, the teacher suggests he attend one of his classes so he can see that they approach the subject matter with the respect and sensitivity that it deserves. And the latter
Well
says
done,
he'll
well
be
done.
there. Later, the man heads to his old apartment and tells JT that he's going on a date with Pilar. In the bedroom, the friend says he should change up his usual dating tactic of taking things slow and be more aggressive when it comes to initiating intimacy.
Nope,
Then,
Pilau.
he gives the teacher medication, which he claims can help improve the man's love-making performance. During the next
Pilau wants
class,
to go chill.
Reverend Hamilton observes from the back of the room and listens to Ed answer written questions from the students. However, as the queries become less scientific and more crude, the appalled man walks out.
Not having
The teacher
it.
chases after him. The Reverend says he's merely indulging the pupils and encouraging their worst instincts. He adds that he gave the man a chance, but all he saw simply strengthened his decision to shut down the program. After class, Tito asks Ed for a prophylactic, claiming that his girlfriend finally wants to do the deed. The man refuses, reasoning that the student is much too young to engage in intimate activities that could have life-altering repercussions. However, the teen says he's still going to do it whether the teacher gives him a prophylactic or not.
Oh,
During the date, Ed admits
Bro.
that he gave Tito a prophylactic, angering Pilar, who says he should have told her so she could stop her brother. Soon, the pair barge into the house and catch the teen kissing Margarita on the couch. Pilar tells the girl and the teacher to leave so she can talk to Tito. When Ed says he can stay, the furious woman says this is all his fault because he gave the student a prophylactic and taught him how to use it. As he walks back to his car, Hector confronts him for dating Pilar and beats him up. After the scuffle, the teacher picks up a courtesan and parks in a dark alley. To prepare for the deed, Ed takes the medication JT gave him, lying that it's for his headache. However, before he can put the bottle away, the courtesan takes one herself. Moments later, the man sees a male organ protruding from underneath the courtesan's dress, revealing that she isn't a woman. Suddenly, police arrive and they arrest the pair for the illegal transaction.
Oh my
When
God,
he finally
that sucks.
returns to his apartment, Ed tells JT that he's never slept with a woman before. So, the friend admits that he's always known this the whole time, and no one ever believed his made-up stories. The ex-roommate adds that he doesn't have to worry about it too much because it'll happen eventually. The next day, the teacher finds Washout waiting for him in the empty classroom. The man says the after-school program is canceled until he can find somebody new, implying that he's been fired from the job.
Wow,
Days
that's
later,
shitty.
Ed returns to his old job at the bagel shop, and Sydney stops by to see how he's doing. The man recounts the events over the past few days that led him to his current situation. He believes that if he could have done the deed just once, he'd have the confidence he needed. So, the landlady says he needs to stop blaming his inexperience with women and start thinking about what he needs to do to become the man that he wants to be. The next day, Ed apologizes to Pilar for what happened and explains that he was only trying to do the right thing. He adds that he likes the woman and wants to prove it with a grand gesture.
Pilar wants nothing to do
Then,
with them.
the man assembles his oboe and plays her a song even though he isn't very good at it. Later, while taking a stroll around the city, they share a kiss by the river. Eventually, the woman says she wants to take him to her favorite club tonight.
Oh,
That evening,
okay.
Pilar greets Bobby the bouncer by the door but refuses to let Ed in. So, the woman says she'll go inside to say hi to her friends, and he can just wait for her so they can go somewhere
Wow,
else.
that's kind of shitty.
After she leaves, the bouncer tells Ed to go home because his date is never coming out of the club, implying that she's way above his standards. Suddenly, Hector appears to confront the man for going out with Pilar again, and a fight ensues. Soon, the police arrive and arrest the two men for the public altercation.
Where's
Later
the
at
girl?
bar, Ed
She-
realizes
she really
that
stayed
he
in
needs
the
to
bar,
get his
bro?
job back and decides he's going to speak to Reverend Hamilton tomorrow. The next day, the teacher rallies his students and they crash the Reverend's support group meeting. The man reveals that he's never done the deed and that he sometimes wonders if he's qualified to teach the class. However, he insists that what he's teaching the pupils is necessary because if they don't learn this in school, they'll likely pick up misinformation from their friends or the internet.
Yep.
Eventually, the teens show their support for the teacher by sharing that the knowledge they now know taught them to be more careful in the future. Leon adds that there are some topics that he can't talk about with his father. Finally, the Reverend understands the importance of Ed's class and allows it to continue. Later, one of the support group attendees tells the teacher how much she admires his resolve. Then, she shows the man her bare chest and says he can call her anytime he wants.
Wow.
That evening, Pilar shows up at Ed's apartment and congratulates him for getting his job back. She adds that Tito told her about the teacher confessing that he's never done the deed. Then, the woman
she
kisses
wants
the man and starts undressing in the bedroom. But Ed says they should hang out and celebrate with his friends at the bar first. Suddenly, Pilar says she wants to be the man's first lovemaking partner. However, the teacher politely turns her down, stating that he doesn't want to do the deed just so he can say he's done it. The woman says she doesn't really like the bar and would rather go to the club. So, he reminds her that the last time they went, he got stuck outside waiting for her.
Yeah.
Pilar promises that it'll be different this time and that she's only trying to make him cooler. The teacher realizes that he and the woman might not be as compatible as he originally thought. Seconds later, she mockingly tells him that he should stay chaste his whole life, and he counters that
God
he's okay
damn.
with that. At the bar, Ed laments that he still hasn't done the deed, so Sydney tells him that he's a man now because he's finally in control of his life. 1 year later, the teacher now has one of the most popular classes in school, gaining all the students' respect.
Subscribe to watch more
Nice.
videos like